Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I've officially been on YouTube for just over a month and it seems worthwhile to just share more of how I got here and like what even is the point. So let's do that. In this video, we're gonna go through some highs and lows of the past month. I'll share a little bit more about some of the events that I'm attending and offline stuff. Then we'll wrap things up with what I'm excited for in the next month and some of the videos that are lined up for editing. If you really don't want to miss anything, you can hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell, and that way you'll be the first to know when a new video gets released. I mean, you will be the first to see. You're really getting in on the ground floor at this point because I only have this many subscribers. But before we get into all of that, I first want to share a little bit of background of just how I ended up on YouTube, especially as someone who said they would never do YouTube. All of this started about, we'll say the middle of October. So I uploaded my first short on October 16th, and that was right after Fancy. Fancy is the Food and Nutrition Conference and Expo, and it is like the nutrition event of the year. And I think coming out of Fancy, I realized two really important things. The first was that, you know, these are topics that I'm genuinely interested in and excited to learn more about. But once I take that deep dive and learn more about them, it's sort of like a limited area that I can share that in. It's like my friends and family don't want to hear me talk about, you know, all of the nuances of this particular subject, or, you know, even in private practice work, a lot of it, while interesting, isn't always helpful. You know, I was trying to figure out a way to share that more effectively because, at least to this point in time, my efforts on Instagram Reels and TikTok have only been, we'll say, moderately successful. Meanwhile, you know, we watch a lot of YouTube at home. You can watch YouTube on a TV, and honestly, most nights, that's what we're opting for instead of some of the other streaming channels. So when I was browsing, you know, I'm looking at the timestamps on that, and it's surfacing videos from, you know, 5 years ago, 8 years ago, even longer. And it's just sort of like, you know, the content there seems so much more evergreen. And so instead of high quantity, maybe we'll go for more quality. I'm going to put the caveat on that, you know, quality will inevitably improve, but it is what it is for now. And the other thing is there's not that many dietitians on YouTube at this point. I think there's a handful that are very successful and are clearly thriving on this platform, and that just proves the theory. Like, this is a place where dietitians can find success if that's what they want to do. So, you know, having these longer form videos, just more opportunity to get into the details and the nuance and added context. I think that's so important, and it's really not something that you're able to do because a TikTok audience doesn't have the attention span to sit through more than maybe 7 or 8 seconds. And there's so little that you're able to do with some of these more complex and nuanced issues. I don't know if a YouTube audience is quite there either, especially for very new or small channels, but that's what I'd like to do more of. So here I am. All right, so let's get into some of the highs and lows because I think it's important to be honest about things I feel really good about. And then there's things that I think super sucked. And, you know, all of those things happen simultaneously. I think one of the things, you know, just referencing my notes to keep everything straight, I think arguably the biggest high was putting out my first video. I mean, again, as someone who never thought that they would do YouTube, this felt like a big deal. And a lot of the videos I've been posting initially were shorts, but those were just older TikToks or videos I already had, you know, remove the watermark, upload them, act like they're new. I mean, that's why you'll see I look different in a lot of them. But that to me didn't really feel like a big win because that's just repurposing content. This first video was something I created specifically for YouTube, and it was a good way to just practice some of those things like video editing and speaking on camera in, you know, a giant room by myself for the most part. And it was definitely interesting. I mean, at some point you just have to make your peace with the fact that it's not going to be perfect and hit upload, because if you don't do it then, it'll never happen. And then here we are weeks later just talking about this video that still hasn't been put out into the world. So at this point, it is indeed out there in the world. You can go watch it if you'd like. To kind of go along with that, I noticed just a ton of support from friends and family, other colleagues, other dietitians, other small channels. I think that's been fantastic. And the one area I really want to mention is a Facebook group. It's run by Philip Lemoyne, who has a great channel of his own. I'll link to that because he produces a lot of great food videos, but more importantly for me and my YouTube journey, his videos have been immensely helpful as far as the type of equipment to invest in, just the logistics of learning things like lighting and audio and editing and how to do this all from your iPhone, which is what I'm using to film this video. But as we're talking about editing and production quality and all of those things, that brings me to the first low. And I think the biggest low point that I hit was just the massive reality check that my video editing skills leave a lot to be desired. So when I got into Final Cut Pro for the first time, I realized very, very quickly that, wow, this is not intuitive. I am in over my head and I'm going to need a little bit of help. So again, I think that reality check was helpful in a way, but also did not feel great, because it sucks to feel like you're not good at something. I mean, I'm one of those people that really doesn't like to do something unless I already know I'm going to be good at it. And I just have to make peace with the fact that my video editing skills are extremely novice at this point. Experiencing something as a novice and then learning it, especially as a small business owner or a solopreneur, is really, really important. Like, I'm not financially at the level where I can outsource video editing. I mean, that's definitely a goal. I'd love to get there, and they can edit out things like this train noise that you're hearing behind me, but I'm just not there yet. I also think it's important to know and understand what has to be done to keep your business running, because what happens if you have that support and it suddenly goes away? That's sort of a standard I've set for myself from the early days of just anything that happens in my business, I really want to know and understand how to do it myself so that if or when I ever have to, I can. All right, the second low is not really YouTube specific, but just life in general. It is dark all the time and I hate it so much. I love the fall, but the worst time of the year for me is when daylight savings happens and it starts to get dark at like 4:30 in the afternoon. And so I think overall my mood and energy level have just been taking a dip more than usual. The other low points this month came more from my professional work. So as a dietitian who works in media, you know, I submit a lot of proposals to different events, trying to get sessions accepted so that I can make my way around the speaking circuit. And I did exactly that. I put in a bunch of submissions for 2023 events that I was really excited about. And I kind of had, you know, some proof that it was a viable option because I had previously presented on this topic at one of the biggest state meetings. And so the topic, you know, was already developed. I already had the materials, and so I shopped it around. But unfortunately, as of this point in time, I have gotten nothing but rejections. All right, this last one is just a little real talk, because it's true that a lot of the revenue that comes into my business is through partnerships with different brands or commodity boards or nonprofits. And it's great when you find a partner that aligns so well, because it's a food or an ingredient that you already love and use. You're recommending it to your clients. You would be excited to share about them, even if you weren't getting paid. But it sucks when they don't feel the same and that mutual love isn't there. So I did unfortunately have a brand that I was super excited to work with ghost me after a few initial emails. So they had reached out to me about some work for the end of this year and into early next, and I was thrilled about it. My creative juices were already flowing, and I was thinking about, you know, recipe ideas and how I could present that information in a new and interesting way. And, you know, after those initial emails, I haven't heard back. And yeah, I mean, that's just kind of the reality of it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm batting 1,000 and just, you know, crossing everything off my wish list. It's really, you know, a roller coaster of, you know, these highs and lows. But I think that does bring me back to another high, which is, like I said, I was already feeling, you know, really creative around the types of ideas that I could do with that. And I think overall this, you know, openness towards moving into YouTube has re-energized a lot of creativity that I wasn't feeling before. It was so disheartening to think, okay, I'm going to put in hours to develop a recipe, buy the groceries, film it, edit it, post it on Instagram, only for it to go nowhere. And now I think there's so much more opportunity for me to talk about the things that matter to me, for me to try to make things that, you know, are also valuable to you as someone watching it. And yeah, I think that's a good thing. So besides all of these things that I'm doing with YouTube, I mean, a lot is still happening behind the scenes. I am right now up to my eyeballs in a recipe development project that has me in the kitchen doing tons of recipe testing and ingredient measurements and all this stuff. I mean, it's basically like glorified data entry at this point. So definitely not glamorous, but it's going to pay the bills for a couple of months. And that's great because that frees up a little bit of pressure for me to invest time in something like getting a YouTube channel up and going. So I am very excited about that part, because even when it does feel less than exciting, at the end of the day, I get paid to talk about food. Like, that's amazing. So I am happy about that. I'm also finishing up a lot of contracts from this year and getting ready for next year. I feel like this always really piles on from about the middle of November until the end of the year. all comes at once. That's a good segue into what I'm excited for, because next month is my birthday month. We have a major holiday, so I'm really trying to churn out some of this draft content. The other thing I'm really excited for this month is that the desk I ordered is finally going to arrive. It has been back ordered for months, and honestly, if I had known that at the time, I maybe would have picked a different one. But I am really happy with the decision, and I'm excited to finally get it. So the backstory there is that, we have this great workspace here. My partner and I put in a ton of work on this kitchen, and I absolutely love it. But this isn't where we live anymore. So we recently moved, and in the new house, I didn't have the same type of work setup that I had here. And my brain is often distracted and, just has a hard time being efficient. And so I really wanted to create an environment at home where I could set up my computer, just have some focused time to be really productive on important things. And until this desk comes in, I'm sitting upstairs in this recliner, and the cats are like walking all over me. And so, it's just one of those things. I'm excited to finally have a spot to call kind of my home base at home. And bringing it back to YouTube, this is one of the things I'm really excited for, is to just see how and if my plan is working. I say if because I truly don't know. I've watched a lot of videos from creators and other channels that say, if you want to make it on YouTube and have any kind of success on this platform, however you define it, it takes a couple of things. And it's that initial resistance to getting started that I have the biggest problem with right now. I am a huge procrastinator, and I've lied to myself for a long time and said it's just because I work well under pressure. But is that really true? If you're the one creating that kind of pressure because you've procrastinated on your deadline for so long, I made myself a promise that I would commit to it for 6 months. I said, okay, Cara, if you can commit to this and really put in the time and the effort for 6 months, that's a good enough test to let you know if this is something to keep pushing forward with, or if it's not going to work out, how else do you need to pivot and kind of reinvent your business? I'm excited to at least see, from the analytics and the data that YouTube provides, which are arguably so much better than what you get with social media. There's a lot of ways that you can really fine tune it to say, okay, how do I improve my click-through rate? Or how do I write better video titles? Or how do I make better thumbnails? These are all skills that I haven't had to use yet, but I have to acknowledge that my initial effort isn't going to be my best effort. So just wanting to see how and if all of the things in the plan start to fall into place and what I need to change to keep it going. So with all of that being said, here's what you can expect in the next month. The first video I plan on putting out is about what you should be thinking about if you're tempted to go back to dieting. These are the 5 things you should think about before starting a diet in 2023. And then to go hand in hand with that is how to shut down diet talk. Let's say you're already committed to not dieting anymore, but when you walk into the office or you're around certain friends or family members or whatever, there's going to be all this chatter that's, again, just trying to pressure you into going back to dieting. So I think that'll be a really helpful video, because these are topics that come up with the clients I work with all the time. And I have a feeling if you're at all similar to that, it may be helpful to you too. And then finally, I think a few more recipe videos. I would initially love to have about half of my content be food and recipe related, and have the other half of it be driven more by those other topics. So not necessarily anything, cooking related or anything like that. Maybe we'll be set up at my new desk instead of here in the kitchen, but we'll see. The biggest takeaway from this last month is, I think, just being realistic with myself, but also nice to myself. I have to make peace with the fact that, all right, Cara, you're a dietitian. You're not a videographer. You're not an SEO strategist. You're not a copywriter, and you don't have to be perfect at any of those things. I tell myself you just need to be good enough to give yourself a fighting chance on this platform. And so if you're aspiring to have your own YouTube channel, maybe you're another dietitian or an intern or someone else in the food space, go for it. I think there's a lot of things that can hold us back, but we have these amazing tools in our pocket. We carry our own phones all day long, and that's pretty much all you need to get started. So if you're interested in following along on my journey, I hope you will, because this is going to be the first of what I plan to be many monthly updates where I recap what's been going well, what hasn't, what I've learned, and just kind of sharing what it takes to start and grow a channel on YouTube. So again, I'm Cara, the dietitian behind Street Smart Nutrition, home of fearlessly nourishing meals. And if you're interested, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we will see you here again soon. I'm gonna go heat up this coffee because this video took me so long. It is now very cold. It's just so distracting. I can't hear myself think, my notes. Oh, this wasn't in the notes. Creativity so that I can be productive my God, now there's a motorcycle. Are they done? I think they're done. Yep, he's still going. And now we have an airplane. I told you, it's just constant. Now there's a car.